How much money do you need to accumulate to actually be able to retire? Will $1 million really be enough to retire in 10 to 20 years, including inflation? We're told to put a percentage of our paycheck away into our 401k or a Roth IRA every single year, but what's the actual goal? And better yet, what's the best way to actually get there? How long will it actually take to be able to retire? This video is going to go over all of that and explain why you may actually need a lot less than you actually think to be able to retire. And I have a special treat for you today. You all know that I'm a university professor and that I made this channel to make investing simplified, but as a bonus, I have my friend Erin from the YouTube channel Erin Talks Money on with me today in this video. So we're going to discuss this topic so you can get a couple different perspectives. So how much money do you actually need in order to retire comfortably? Doing a quick search online, I found about 20 different answers, but none of them are for you personally. So let's get to the bottom of this. The most common answer that I see for that question is this idea of you need about $1 million to be able to retire comfortably. But when we look at the actual data, the vast majority of people don't have anywhere near that amount saved up. Perhaps the most official measure of American retirement savings comes from the Federal Reserve System. The Fed calculated average retirement account balances for individuals. Broken down by age, those balances are as follows. Younger than 35 years old is about $49,000. From 35 to 45 is about $141,000. From 45 to 54 is about $313,000. From 55 to 64 is about $537,000. From 65 to 74, a little over $600,000. And 75 and older is $462,000. So we can see that on average in any of those age groups, nobody's really close to $1 million. And of the total retirement savings, most people's biggest one is their company 401k. So let's look at average 401k balances from Vanguard, one of the nation's biggest providers. 401ks for people younger than 25 is around $5,000. From 25 to 34, an average of $30,000. 35 to 44, $76,000. 45 to 54, $142,000. 55 to 64 is a little over $200,000, and 65 plus is at $232,710. So if many professional analysts and financial advisors and other people are saying that you should have about $1 million invested by the time that you retire, but the numbers clearly show that people that are even close to retirement age or in retirement age don't even have that amount saved up, then why does the research show that people that are actually at that age are actually the most happy and are very happy in retirement and are living totally comfortable with that amount of money? A recent study by Gallup shows that over 77% of retirees are living comfortably, but that most non-retirees are worried that they will not be able to live comfortably when they retire. So in order to know exactly how much money you need to be able to retire comfortably, you're going to need to figure out a couple of very key important things. Without this, you might be saving or investing unnecessarily, and you might be doing so by taking away from your standard of living now out of fear for what could happen later when you really don't even need to be doing that. One of my favorite Stoics, Seneca, said, "If one does not know to which port one is sailing, no wind is favorable." For the first key piece of information here, Erin's going to go over the typical spending of actual retirees.
When trying to figure out how much you need to fund your retirement, a great place to start is how much you actually plan on spending. And while everyone faces different expenses, let's look at what the average retiree spends, because the average news out there is that the typical person should be setting a benchmark of $1 million for retirement. If we look at it by age, according to the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, for early retirees aged 65 to 74, they spend on average about $4,800 a month, or about $58,000 a year. For retirees 75 and older, they spend about $3,800 a month, or just over $45,000 a year. It is worth mentioning that spending does tend to decline when you go from working years into retirement years, and then it tends to decline as you continue on through your retirement years. For instance, a typical early retiree household spends 80% of what the typical working household spends. When you get to older retirees, they spend about 63% of what a typical working household spends. But the good news is, the burden of funding the spending doesn't rest entirely on your shoulders.
So try to figure out your likely spending in retirement, and then this next piece of information here is the different sources of income that one can expect while being in retirement age. The first couple ones are obvious. That would be your 401k or 403b, something that you're actually putting money aside for retirement, literally the retirement account that most people have. Then there's also your IRA or individual retirement account or a Roth IRA. This is separate from that 401k or 403b that you're putting into through work. And this is something that you can only touch after age 59 and a half, which is usually that retirement age. Then some of you are lucky enough to have a pension. That needs to be included and understood, because if you're getting a pension of $1,000 a month or $2,000 or $5,000 or something crazy, and you figure out that your living expenses in retirement are something like $4,000 a month, then you might be getting most of those expenses covered by your pension for the rest of your life, and so you don't need as much saved up in your 401k or IRA. Another thing to consider is Social Security. Now, yes, in 20 years, 30 years, we don't know exactly what Social Security is going to look like. There's been reports that it's definitely going to be less than what people are getting now. I definitely don't think it's going to be all the way down to zero or anything crazy like that, but I do think that about a portion of it will be gone. There's so many different Social Security checks or calculators out there, so you can try to figure out how much you're going to get at that age. I would highly recommend that whenever you're doing this calculation, that you take the most pessimistic view, the most conservative style view on this, so that if you do get more than that, then great, you're just going to be able to have more. You also want to consider any other investment income, things like rental properties or your taxable brokerage account or any business that you invested in or one that's still going but you're not having to manage and you just collect a check. All of this needs to be considered. One big thing that people fail to think about is the idea that you may not actually ever want to totally retire from the workforce. Maybe you want to do a super part-time job or just a passion style job that you get paid some money. If you're even making a couple $100s a week doing something that you love that's giving you energy and giving you life, keeping your brain sharp, keeping your body moving, this is a great option for you in retirement. And any amount of money that you're making at that point gets to go towards your living expenses, and thus you don't have to take as much out of your investing. And that's why you may not need something like $1 million or more to be able to take out that money from, because you're getting it from other sources. But let's go a little bit deeper into this idea of possibly having too much or too little invested by the time that you're retired.
When it comes to setting a target goal to aim for, you kind of want that Goldilocks number. A number that's not too big, not too little, just right. And if you find yourself just setting an arbitrary number, or worse, let society set an arbitrary number for you, and that number ends up being too aggressive to really fund the lifestyle you want, you might find yourself having to make more sacrifices than necessary to hit this financial target. And while rarely does anyone get to retirement and say something like, oh darn, I saved too much money, being too aggressive with your financial goals can lead to more sacrifices than necessary today. It can lead to less enjoyment today. It can lead to you working long past the point of where you've actually reached financial freedom. And reaching financial freedom and knowing when you've reached it is actually a pretty special moment, because it brings you a great deal of peace. On the flip side, you don't want to be too conservative with your target, because the last thing you want to do is get to retirement and run out of money. At that point, you might be forced to make deeper cuts than you would truly like, or you might have to turn to family and friends for assistance, or you might be forced back into the workspace long after you really truly want to be working. So how should you invest to make sure you're on track to hit your specific goals? Well, a quick rule of thumb is to have a multiple of your income based on your age. Fidelity uses these guidelines. By the time you're 30, they suggest having 1 times your annual income saved up in your investments. By the time you're 40, they want that multiple to be about 3 times, working your way up to full retirement age of 67, where you should have about 10 times your annual income saved up in investments. For instance, if your salary is $50,000 a year, they would suggest having $500,000 invested by the age of 67.
So what are the best ways to increase that saved or invested amount each year to make sure that you're able to get to whatever your goal is for retirement? Number one, I definitely tell everyone, make sure and take that full 401k match. That's basically free money that the company's giving you. might as well just take it. After the 401k match, try to get as much money as you can into a Roth IRA. I prefer the Roth IRA to the traditional IRA only because I believe that 10 years from now, and for sure 20 years from now, taxes are going to be way higher than they are right now. And if that's the case, you're going to want to be taking advantage of the fact that any money you pull out of that Roth IRA at that time, you won't have to pay 1 single cent in taxes. Say you put in $1,000 into the Roth IRA and it goes up to $1 million. All of that gain, all of it, when you pull it out, you don't have to pay taxes at all. I'd also be adding to a brokerage account or just buying assets that are supposed to appreciate, things like rental properties and businesses, doing the best that you can to not spend all your money. Do your best to budget to find even just $50 extra per month to be able to invest with. If you have $200 per month invested for 30 years in an ETF that receives 12% appreciation each year, that could end up with about $579,000. But just finding literally $50 more, that's it, just $50 more to be able to invest each month, and everything else is the same, one could end up with almost $725,000. That's a difference of almost $150,000. So yeah, that little $50 per month really adds up. Like Erin said before, there are too aggressive and too conservative ways to go about saving for retirement. Understand your expenses in retirement, and you'll understand what your number should be and then how to get there. Go check out Erin Talks Money. Her YouTube channel link is down below. And head on over to her channel where we actually collaborated on another video that she just released today on how to actually fund an early retirement totally penalty-free. And that one is packed full of gems. After watching that one, make sure and watch these videos to keep you going strong in your investing journey and keep investing simplified.